Alright, so now we're going to head into chapter number 2. So the essential question for this one is going to be, who is the man who rides past and why is he significant? So I'm going to ask you now what you think. Why might this man be significant and why, who do you think he is based on the characters that we've already been introduced to? I know that none of them have been a man, but who might you be? Who might you think that they are? So who is the man who rides past? Tell me a story, Amory, begged Kirsty as she snuggled beside her sister in the big bed they shared. Tell me a fairy tale. Amory smiled and wrapped her arms around her little sister in the dark. All Danish children grew up with a familiar fairy tale. Hans Christian Andersen, the most famous of the tale tellers, had been Danish himself. Do you want the one about the little mermaid? That one has always been Amory's favorite, but Kirsty said no. Tell one that starts with a king and queen, and they have a beautiful daughter. All right. Once upon a time, there was a king, Amory began. And a queen, whispered Kirsty. Don't forget the queen. And a queen. They lived together in a wonderful palace. Was the palace named Almenborg? Kirsty said sleepily. Shh, don't keep interrupting, or I'll never be able to finish. No, it wasn't Amalienburg. It was Pretend Palace. Amory talked on, making up a story of a king and a queen and their beautiful daughter, Princess Kirsten. She sprinkled her tale with the formal balls and fabulous gold-trimmed gowns and a feast of pink frosted cupcakes until Kirsty's deep, even breathing told her that her sister was sound asleep. She stopped, waited a moment, half expecting Kirsty to murmur, "Then what happened?" But Kirsty was still. Amory's thoughts turned to the real king, Christian X, the real palace, Amalienborg, where he had lived, in the center of Copenhagen. How the people of Denmark loved King Christian. He was not like fairy tale kings, who seemed to stand on balconies giving orders to subjects who sat on the golden thrones demanding to be entertained and looking for suitable husbands for their daughters. King Christian was a real human being, a man with a serious, kind face. She had seen him often when she was younger. Each morning he had come from the palace on his horse to Jubilee and ridden alone through the streets of Copenhagen, greeting his people. Sometimes, when Amory was a little girl, her older sister, Liz, had taken her to stand on the sidewalk so that she could wave to King Christian. Sometimes he had waved back to the two of them and smiled. Now you are special forever, Liz had told her once, because you're greeted by the king. Amory turned her head on the pillow and stared through the partially open curtains of the window in the dim September night, thinking of Liz, her solemn, lovely sister. Always made her sad, so she turned her thoughts again to the king, who was still alive, as Liz was not. She remembered a story that Papa had told her shortly after the war began, shortly after Denmark had surrendered and the soldiers had moved in the night to take the places on the corner. One evening Papa had told her that earlier he was on an errand near his office, standing on the corner across the street when King Christian came by in the morning ride. One of the German soldiers had turned suddenly and asked the question to the teenage boy, "Who is that man who rides past here every morning on his horse?" The German soldier had asked. Papa said he had smiled to himself, amused that the German soldier did not know. He listened while the boy answered, "He is our king." The boy told the soldier, "He is the king of Denmark." "Where is his bodyguard?" the soldier asked. And do you know what the boy said Papa had asked? Amory, she's sitting on his lap. She was little, then only 7 years old. She shook her head, waiting to hear the answer. The boy looked that soldier right in the eye and said, "All of Denmark is his bodyguard." Amory had shivered. It sounded like a very brave answer. "Is it true, Papa?" she asked. What the boy said, Papa thought for a moment. He always considered questions very carefully before he answered them. "Yes," he said, "it is true. Any Danish citizen would die for King Christian to protect him." "You too, Papa?" "Yes, and Mama?" "Mama too." Amory shivered again. "Then I would too, Papa, if I had to." They sat silently for a moment. From across the room, Mama watched them, Amory and Papa, and she smiled. Mama had began crocheting that evening 3 years ago. the lacy edging of the pillow case, part of Lys's trousseau. Her fingers moved rapidly, turning the thin white thread into intricate narrow border. Lys was a grown-up girl of 18 then, about to be married to Peter Nielsen. When Lys and Peter married, Mama said Anne-Marie and Kirsty would have a brother for the very first time. "Papa," Anne-Marie said finally into the silence, "sometimes I wonder why the king wasn't able to protect us. Why didn't he fight the Nazis so that they wouldn't come into Denmark with their guns?" Papa sighed. "We are such a tiny country," he said, "and they are such an enormous enemy. Our king was wise. He knew how few soldiers Denmark had. He knew that many, many Danish people would die if we fought. In Norway, they fought," Anne-Marie pointed out. "They fought very fiercely in Norway. They had huge mountains for Norwegian soldiers to hide in. Even so, Norway was crushed." In her mind, Anne-Marie pictured Norway as she remembered it, on the map above Denmark. Norway was pink on the school map. She imagined the pink strip of Norway getting crushed by a fist. "Are the German soldiers in Norway now? The same as here?" "Yes, in Holland too," Mama added across the room. "And in Belgium, and in France." "Not in Sweden," Anne-Marie announced, proud that she knew so much about the world. Sweden was blue on the map, and she had seen Sweden even though she had never been there herself. Standing behind Uncle Henrik's house north of the Copenhagen, she had looked across the water. The part of the North Sea was called the Kittek. "To the land on the other side. That is Sweden you are seeing," Uncle Henrik had told her. "You are looking across to another country." "That's true, Papa," had said. "Sweden is still free. And now, 3 years later, this is still true. But much else has changed. King Christian was getting old, and he'd been badly injured last year in a fall on his house. Faithful old Jubilee, who had carried him around the Copenhagen so many mornings for years that they thought he would die, and all of Denmark had mourned. But he hadn't. King Christian Max was still alive. It was Lys who was not. It was her tall, beautiful sister who had died in an accident 2 weeks before her wedding, in a blue carved trunk in the corner of this bedroom. Anne-Marie would see its shape even in the dark. There, folded Lys's pillowcase with her crocheted edges, her wedding dress with her embroidered neckline unworn, and the yellow dress that she had worn and danced in, with her full skirt flying at the party celebrating her engagement to Peter. Mama and Papa never spoke of Lys. They never opened the trunk, but Anne-Marie did. From time to time, when she was alone in the apartment, she touched Lys's things gently, remembering her quietly. A soft-spoken sister would look forward to marriage and children of her own. Red-headed Peter, her sister's fiancé, had not married anyone in the years since Lys's death. He had changed a great deal. Once he had been like a fun-loving older brother to Anne-Marie and Kirsty, teasing and tickling and always a source of foolishness and pranks. Now, he still stopped by the apartment often, with greetings to the girls who were warm and smiling, but he was usually in a hurry, talking quickly to Mama and Poppy about things Anne-Marie didn't understand. He no longer sang the nonsense songs that once made Anne-Marie and Kirsty shriek with laughter. And he never lingered any more. Papa changed too. He seemed much older, very tired, and very defeated. The whole world had changed. Only the fairy tales remained the same, and they lived happily ever after, Anne-Marie recited, whispering into the dark, completing the tale. Her sister, who slept beside her, one thumb in her mouth.